ran the calculation in my head and still didn't see how that could be possible. I wasn't in Korea, he said. I was in World War II. Good God, how old are you? 84. 84? How do you manage to do all that crazy running around in Juarez? I'm retired. Retired from what? That's when my cell phone rang. It was Bowden's number. Where are you? He said. I glanced across the table at the old man in the veteran's cap. I'm at the Cajun restaurant. Where are you? I'm sitting at the bar right behind you. Then he appeared at my side and took a seat at the table. He was a tall man, all right, with a deep tan and turquoise eyes. Thanks for the recommendation, he said. That gumbo was really good. We immediately started talking about the latest violence in Juarez, and the veteran across the table didn't bat an eye. Then an artist friend of Bowden's joined us, Alice Leora Briggs, and there was more talk, this time about the former cartel hitman Bowden had come to admire. Outside on the sidewalk, Bowden told me he'd read one of my books and liked it. When he asked about my current project, I told him I was heading to the site of ancient Antioch on a search for faith as it was defined in the book of Hebrews. Bowden said he didn't believe in any of that religious crap, but he had an idea. You ought to head down to Juarez, he said. There's something spiritual going on down there, and I'd like to know what you make of it. This wasn't the first time I'd been on the verge of a spiritual quest and someone had pointed me in an unexpected direction. When I was a soldier in the early 1970s, I'd agreed to do volunteer work at the Leesville State School for Retarded Boys in Louisiana. There, I met a disfigured 13-year-old boy who wouldn't speak, but who could sing hymns so beautifully, my knees buckled in gratitude to whomever had allowed me to witness that. In the 1980s, I'd been to a war in El Salvador, and that experience had literally sobered me up. Then in Alabama in the 1990s, while covering an attempted murder trial involving a snake-handling preacher, I'd discovered the power of the Holy Ghost, something that had only been talked about in the staid churches of my childhood. That power was dangerous, as evidenced by the rattlesnakes. So my family was relieved when I came to my senses, but I'd learned that the physical senses were ephemeral. The spiritual ones might be the only ones that lasted forever. The news Chuck Bowden wanted to share was equally unconventional. He told me that some lunatics were going to burn an effigy of Judas on the day before Easter in front of the cathedral in Juarez. The purpose was to drive Satan out of the city. So, on the Thursday before Easter, I drove down to El Paso, the border city on the American side of the Rio Grande. 5 police officers had been murdered in Juarez the week before at an off-duty party celebrating their return from a month-long stay for their own safety in area hotels. The day I arrived was the day that Jose Antonio Acosta Hernandez, a Mexican drug kingpin thought to be responsible for as many as 1,500 deaths, had been sentenced to 10 life terms in prison. Since Mexican judges had been reluctant to try this monster in their own country, he'd been extradited across the river to El Paso, where he'd pleaded guilty in federal court to the 2010 murder of 3 people with ties to the U.S. consulate in Juarez. Acosta Hernandez, better known as El Diego, also admitted that he'd ordered the massacre of 16 Mexican teenagers at a Juarez birthday party and the detonation of a car bomb in the center of downtown that had killed 4 other innocents. 10 life terms just didn't seem long enough for El Diego, who had headed up La Línea, the vicious enforcement arm of the Juarez cartel. But the U.S. district judge had done her best to match the punishment with the crime. After reading El Diego's sentence aloud, she shipped him off to an undisclosed maximum security prison, a place from which no one had ever escaped or been paroled. When Good Friday dawned cool and clear, residents on both sides of the river